Today I'm going to talk about this paper. Is Supervised Syntactic Parsing beneficial for language understanding? An empirical investigation by Goran and Ivan. Language understanding is considered one of the holy grail problems of natural languages processing. Because in order to make really smart systems, you have to let the systems understand the language. And one of the methods to help the models understand more is to pre-train. And hopefully, during this pre-train method, we can inject some knowledge into this model so that it will be easier for them to get fine-tuned better and reach higher performance in the later downstream tasks. So in this paper, they pre-trained with syntactic knowledge and fine-tuned on several language understanding tasks. The overall question is that is explicit structural language information provided in the form of a widely adopted syntactic formalism, UD, and injected in a supervised manner into LM pre-trained transformers. Is this injection of syntactic knowledge beneficial for transformers' downstream language understanding performance? To directly evaluate the effect of infusing structural knowledge via intermediate dependency parsing training on transformers' performance in downstream language understanding. They refer to the pre-training process as IPT, intermediate training task. Let us first look at their pre-training process. How do they inject syntactic knowledge as represented by the arc and the relation signals in the universal dependency dataset? How do they inject them into the model? They first pass the sentences into transformer, take the output, pass them through word level average pooling, and then they use two projection matrices, one called WArc and together with the BArc. This constructs a linear layer to predict the arc label. This is one stream, and at the other stream, they use another matrix and weight and bias parameters to construct another linear layer that predicts the relation label. During optimization, the two streams of the linear layers are optimized together. The arc prediction loss is the cross entropy with sentence word plus the root node as categorical labels. And the relation loss is a cross entropy loss over gold arcs. In comparison with the original Biofilm parser and other transformer-based variants, this paper feed word-level representations derived from the transformer's output directly to Biofilm products, omitting the dependent and head-specific NMFP multiple layer perceptron transformations. These are actually byte pair encoding instead of word embeddings. After pre-training, they fine-tuned on downstream models. There are two categories of downstream tasks: sequential classification, SEQC, and multiple choice classification, MCC. The sequential classification includes MNLI and PAWS dataset, and the multiple choice includes social IQA and cross-COPA. The fine-tuning contains two variants. The first one is the standard fine-tuning. This updates all the transformers parameters. The second variant is adapter-based fine-tuning. This keeps the original transformers parameters frozen and inserts new adapter parameters in transformer layers. In experiments, they showed that adapter-based fine-tuning does not work very well. Okay, now let's look at their result. On the Biofilm parsing result, the Biofilm parsing experiment, the standard parser got of Roberta was the highest, together with the cross-language model R. These two results are better than the baseline, UDFI, which is based on multilingual BERT. Note that other pre-training methods also all result in higher performances than the baseline, except for the adapter in BERT. Several performance Actually, several other tasks in several other tasks, the multilingual BERT does not outperform baseline. See, these are 76%-ish, while the baseline is 87%. Okay, these are the performance gain. The second experiment I want to talk about is the ablation study of the performance gain. So, because you inject with syntactic knowledge, you effectively actually exposed the text into language model. So, is that possible that the performance gain is resulting from the model seeing the new text instead of you inject the syntactic knowledge? In order to do an ablation study, they pre-train the language models with the same universal dependency dataset, but they use the masked language model tasks. They call this ILMT. So you can see that in figure 2, ILMT represented by MLM, the green bars, they have almost the same, but they also have significant performance gain in comparison to the baselines, but slightly less than the parsing pre-training. The authors honestly presented this result, showing that it's very possible that a large portion of the performance gain is a result from the language model looking at additional language text. The third experiment I want to talk about is the changes in representation spaces. They used a very interesting visualization technique called linear centered kernel alignment, LCKA. This computes how the kernels, this computes how the representations are aligning well with each other. The form is similar to cosine similarity, but they used a kernel product instead of the just the plain product in the cosine similarity. They do this at each layer and plot a heat map for the higher layers, from layer A to layer 12, as you can see, across different pairs. So B and P, AP correspond to different stages in the pre-training. And as you can see, 0.91 indicates that the representation has not changed too much, whereas 0.6 indicates that the representations are changed a lot. You can see there are more changes in the upper layers than the lower layers. And there are also some differences across language models in the representations analysis. So this is basically what I want to talk about this paper. This work examines the effect of leveraging explicitly formalized syntactic structures, as UD, in sort of transformer-based language models for downstream language understanding tasks in monolingual and zero-shot language transfer settings. The key results indicate that explicit syntax, at least in the extensive experiments, provides zero to negligible impacts on language understanding tasks. Also, this study has shed new light on some fundamental questions, such as the one in the title. Will transformers make supervised parsing obsolete for language understanding applications or not? More dramatically, is the end of supervised parsing in sight for semantic language understanding tasks? I think this experiment in this paper does not obsolete the syntax supervised parsing for semantic language understanding tasks. It is still possible to inject syntactic knowledge and other types of knowledge into the models during pre-training, either through using more structured text or larger corpus. There are also a lot of different pre-training task settings, and the fact that a biofilm parser pre-training does not transfer well to the downstream task does not indicate that other types of training pre-training does not transfer to the downstream tasks. A lot more other experiments needs to be done before we can say definitively that we can't inject this kind of knowledge into these models.